Welcome to Maniac Movies LLC. Hitman, my favorite video game adaptation. And with all the talk about the new Mortal Kombat movie, I kind of wanted to go back and rewatch this.
Bred from the world's deadliest criminals. Raised by an exiled brotherhood of the church. His purpose, to rid the world of the evil that infects it.
And yeah, like I said, I thought of doing this because of Mortal Kombat. It kind of made me want to rewatch this because everyone's so high on that Mortal Kombat trailer that's out right now, and I don't see it. I don't see it. I don't see what's so cool about that. It looks like cheap CGI, a bunch of actors I've never heard of, and Tadanobu Asano, who's the only place Raiden is the only person in the movie I've heard of. The production design looks cheap. I mean, it's rated R. It's the first Mortal Kombat movie we've got that's rated R, but that's not enough for me to get excited about the thing. It doesn't look theatrical. It really doesn't. It looks like a straight to DVD movie from the 2000s.
Are you?
The place I was raised, they didn't give us names. They gave us numbers.
So Hitman came out in 2007, and it was part of the sort of second wave of video game adaptations. There was a wave of them in the early to mid 90s that didn't go well. Started with Super Mario Brothers, Street Fighter. Mortal Kombat was a little bit of an uptick, but then Mortal Kombat Annihilation immediately undid that progress. And yeah, it kind of petered off until the guy who did Mortal Kombat, Paul Anderson, did Resident Evil. Resident Evil and its sequels were fairly successful, at least the first few of them, and that led to a few more video game adaptations before it petered out again. Now, there's a reason for this. Hollywood can't adapt a video game for shit. I don't know what it is, but there's something about adapting video games to film that just doesn't work. Now, the first Mortal Kombat movie is actually pretty well regarded, even though I personally thought it sucked. But yeah, it just seems to elude them, and they get it wrong so often and so badly that I almost wonder if it's some sort of sabotage, because the video game industry is seen as as competition for the film industry. It was once just this kind of minor hobby that was mostly for young children, and now I believe the video game industry actually has higher revenue than the film industry does. So yeah, it almost feels like some kind of sabotage. But yeah, so you had the Super Mario Brothers movie, which felt like it was made by someone who had never played the game before. It had so little to do with it. Then you had the Street Fighter movie, same thing. Mortal Kombat at least kind of followed the plot of the game, which I feel like is maybe why that's given a little bit more of a pass than a lot of other video game adaptations, was oftentimes do feel like they didn't do much more than read the back of the game box. And yeah, and Hitman was criticized for not really fully embracing the gameplay. Hitman, the game series, is very stealth oriented. It's very much about sneaking, and Hitman the movie is a straightforward action movie. But the thing is, I don't like stealth games. I think they get boring pretty fast. So I actually prefer this. I like this movie. I like this movie a lot, actually. It's flawed, and again, it is my favorite video game movie, but that's not setting an extremely high bar, because there's only been a few video game movies that weren't more or less roundly hated. A few family films like Detective Pikachu, Sonic the Hedgehog, and the Angry Birds movie are more or less, they're more or less acceptable. I never saw any of those because I don't really watch kids' movies. The Mortal Kombat movie, and beyond that, is basically just a crapshoot of what people talk about. But I like this movie. I think this is a good balls to the wall guys movie. This is a good action movie, and whether you like the games or even know anything about the games, it's actually almost better if you're not a fan of the games, because I feel like that's sort of what hurt this movie when it was first released, is that you had the fans of the game screaming, "This isn't like the game," and it's not. But as a standalone action movie, it is a pretty cool little harsh movie that really could have only been made in the 2000s, when this kind of ultra over the top hard R movie was acceptable. It stars Timothy Olyphant, who best known for starring in the TV shows Deadwood, Justified, and the Netflix series Santa Clarita Diet, and the villain in Die Hard 4. So, and in Scream 2, which was kind of his breakout role. And I like the actor. He's been, I saw him in Scream 2 when it first came out. I've liked him forever. He's an actor I consistently enjoy. And I will say that he was sort of a last-minute replacement for Vin Diesel in this movie. And I feel like Vin Diesel's casting was purely the fact that you're bald, Agent 47's bald, you should play him. Especially because after Vin Diesel backed out, they went to Jason Statham. And Jason Statham actually would have been a great Agent 47, but for some reason that didn't happen. I think it might have been budgetary because I have read that this movie's budget got slashed when Vin Diesel dropped out. They cut the budget way down. So maybe that accounts for why they couldn't get Statham on board. So they went with Timothy Olyphant, and Timothy Olyphant isn't really an action hero. He does. I'll walk that back. He does action TV shows, but as far as movies go, he's really more of a character actor. And yeah, he's not perfect in the role. He's not perfect as Agent 47. He gained some muscle mass for this movie, so he at least has the physicality down. Shaved his head, got the little barcode on the back of his head. But yeah, he's kind of playing the role very similar to the way he played the villain in Die Hard 4. And if you've seen Live Free or Die Hard, that almost is distracting how similar these two performances are. That sort of very mannered, very artificial voice that he uses in Die Hard 4, he also uses here. And I get what he's going for, because Agent 47 is supposed to be this very monotone, robotic killing machine. But it just isn't quite working here. But he's not bad, and there are scenes where he's actually really good. I particularly like how when he's in a fight or a shootout, a lot of times he looks annoyed. He doesn't look worried, he doesn't look angry, he doesn't look intense. He looks like, can we just get this over with? I'll kill you, and then I'll go to my next task, especially the sequence in the train station. He just looks consistently irritated, like, dude, would you just leave me alone so I can do what the hell I'm trying to do? But, yeah, this movie was a very troubled production. It's from a French director named Xavier Gan, and he's best known for doing the French horror movie Frontiers, which is a crazy-ass horror movie about psychotic Nazis in the French countryside. He did a really fantastic kind of post-apocalyptic movie called The Divide with Michael Biehn from the Terminator and Aliens. It came out in the late 2000s. I don't remember if that was right before or right after this movie. I think it was right after. And he's done a couple other things since then. But he had a little bit of momentum going into this, and this was kind of his big break in Hollywood. But unfortunately, this was a very troubled production, and it didn't really go well. He ended up more or less being locked out of the movie. They did reshoots and re-edited the movie without his consent, to the point where both he and Timothy Olyphant have more or less disavowed the movie. They wanted nothing to do with the sequel, which is called Hitman Agent 47. Had the same writer, but a different director and a different star. And that movie was actually originally supposed to star Paul Walker until he died, and they had to suddenly recast it with some guy I've never heard of named Rupert Friend. And that's kind of like the Punisher Warzone to the Punisher with Thomas Jane and John Travolta, in that it's sort of a sequel, but sort of not. And that movie kind of came and went. I never even saw that movie. But this flick is about Agent 47, and you can kind of tell right from the beginning that this movie wasn't edited together well. The beginning shows a bunch of flashbacks to Agent 47's childhood, and Agent 47 is supposed to be a clone, and that's how Xavier again shot the movie, but then they dropped that during production. So, the opening is actually very similar to the Kurt Russell movie Soldier, where you're seeing how he was raised to just be a killer. They would sit him in front of a giant screen that just says things like discipline, strength, conform. They would train him to shoot. When there was any kind of acts of defiance amongst these kids that were being raised this way, they would be just straight up killed. But all this is done very quickly and jump cutty, and it feels like it's even more rushed than it was in Soldier. In Soldier, it's like the first 10 minutes of the movie, and this is maybe only 5. And I've heard that this is actually footage taken from the TV show Dark Angel, which starred Jessica Alba, which, if that's true, that is so cheap and half-assed, but I don't know for a fact that's true because I've never seen a single episode of Dark Angel. But once you get past that, you kind of bypass the whole backstory of Agent 47, where he escapes from this cloning facility and goes to work for this assassination group, CICO, I can't remember what it is. So it kind of seems like he's still just working for the people that raised him. You don't get that defiance or anything at all. So this whole movie is told in flashback form as Agent 47 sits in the home of an Interpol agent that's been tracking him, played by Dougray Scott. Dougray Scott is an actor that pops up and stuff from time to time. I generally think of him as the villain from Mission Impossible 2. Apparently he's on that show Batwoman that everyone hates now. But he's this agent who's like the only person that believes that 47 even exists. And 47 is kind of interrogating him in his own home. He points a gun at him, and it's pretty cool because when he has him held hostage, his family's asleep upstairs. He's like, your family's asleep upstairs, but if you make me kill you, you will not die alone. So right off the bat, like, 47 is not a good guy. He's maybe not a bad guy, but he's not a good guy. And that's one of the places where the trailers for this movie were really, really misleading because they make it sound like 47 is working for the church, like this is goddamn John Carpenter's Vampires or something. That that's just not true. That's not in the movie. I mean, it ends in a church, but he has no connection to the church. It's just the setting of the finale of the movie. So that was absolutely bizarre choices that were made during the production of this movie, during the editing of this movie. So even this framing device, where the whole thing is him kind of telling his story in in the background, it's like, why are we doing this as a flashback movie? Doesn't this kind of rob the movie of some suspense? We know 47 and the cop chasing him are both going to be just fine throughout all this. So anyway, weird editing decision. But then we get 47 having set up this hit in somewhere in, I believe, Africa. And here's where the unrated cut. I had the unrated cut on DVD, and by the way, this is a crappy DVD. I might actually upgrade to Blu-ray because the DVD's digital transfer is shit. But 47 has set up this hit in Africa between these two, a warlord and his brother, where he's jammed explosives down this guy's throat who had a bounty on him, and then gave him to the people that were looking for the bounty so if they'd bring him to the target, he could just blow up the guy and kill everybody, which is a pretty cool, ruthless way of assassinating someone. But it has this weird thing where it says they force-fed him explosives, but then he has this cut on his throat, like the explosives were inserted into his neck. So that's just one of the many places in this movie where it's like, one or the other. Just explain this. I mean, just make it clear to me what's happening. So anyway, 47 is then pretty well established in as, a sharp-dressed man. He likes his suit, he likes his tie, he likes to stay in nice hotels, but he doesn't interact with people. The only person he interacts with is his female contact at the agency that hires him. And that's the only two direct characters from the video games, by the way, is 47 and his contact, Julia, I think is her name. But, he has this really hot blonde come up and hit on him at a bar, and he just kind of like, I'm going to leave. Because he keeps reading this magazine article, because in the 2000s there were a ton of these men's magazines, and it says how to connect to women or something, or understanding the female mind. I think it was understanding the female mind. So he keeps on reading this, and he gets a hit on the potential new president of Russia. This movie takes place almost entirely in Russia, but it actually was shot in, I think, Bulgaria. A lot of movies were shot in Bulgaria in the 2000s. So he's reading through this magazine. He gets his assassinated to kill this guy named Belikov. So he sets up the hit, and he pulls off, one of those world-class sniper shots, and, job done, I'm out. But then he gets told, Belikov survived. And then, even though we see Belikov's head explode like a goddamn watermelon, then we next see Belikov giving a speech with a little band-aid on his forehead. It's like, what? So 47's like, something's up, and they tell him, oh, there's also a witness you have to eliminate. And he says there was no witness. No, there was a witness. So he's told where the witness is. He has to kill this person, and it's Olga Kurilanka. I may be pronouncing that right. So Olga Kurilanka was a fashion model that became an actress, and Hitman was kind of her big break on the world stage. She'd done a few foreign films before this. She was in Paris Jetamy before this. But this movie actually led her into being a Bond girl with Daniel Craig in Quantum of Solace. And, she is stupid hot. And they, of course, this being the 2000s, she's wearing next to nothing through the whole movie. Just these, like, flimsy little dresses. But, the 47 is supposed to kill her, but of course he doesn't, because he realizes she doesn't know who he is. And then he starts to, like, this is a setup, something's wrong. And he takes a ton of safety precautions. And this is kind of from the game where you're supposed to stage things. You're always supposed to be setting up your hit. So at his hotel where he's staying, he's rigged everything. He's hidden guns. He's set up glass on the floor outside his hotel room, so if someone walks up on it, he'll know about it. He's rigged the door to explode if it's forced open. So when he realizes he's been set up, he has this great moment where he tells his female contact, if you've set me up, I will burn that building to the ground around you. Like, this has some good tough guy dialogue from Skip Woods. Skip Woods, who also wrote Swordfish, that Travolta Hugh Jackman hacker movie. So yeah, he realizes there's a cool little action sequence in the hotel. You get some more of the unrated stuff here, because one of the big differences between the R-rated and unrated cut is that, well, first off, in the unrated cut, in the scene in Africa, they actually hack off the guy's arm first, which is an unnecessary but fun little bit of gore. But generally speaking, the unrated cut actually shows the hitman laying waste to people, particularly people that don't see it coming. That seemed to be a big sticking point with the MPAA, is they didn't want the hitman to shoot people in the back. So, 47, he's killing all these Russian cops, and the Interpol agent played by Dougray Scott that's tracking him is outside, but the Russians say, we're handling this, just stay here. And they try to get to him, but he gets away, of course, and it's a cool little action sequence. Yeah, and Timothy Olyphant, like I said, he handles the physicality of the role well. It's just that, again, his line delivery is a little off. So he ends up hooking up with Olga Kurilanka to try and figure out what's going on. And there's this running thing where, he's got the barcode tattoo on the back of his head, and she has this little tattoo on her cheek, which is fake. Neither of them have the real tattoo, obviously. But that kind of is supposed to be why he's fascinated by her, and that he realizes that she's a slave. She's a sex slave to this guy Belikov, the potential Russian president. And he's talking to her, and she says he has doubles. A lot of these rich dictators have doubles. So the hitman's, he's trying to figure out who he killed, why he killed them, and basically just what's going on. In the meantime, Interpol's after him. The Russian secret police are after him. The leader of the Russian secret police is played by an American actor named Robert Knepper. Robert Knepper is best known for the TV show Prison Break. He was the evil redneck psychopath on that TV show. He was a really entertaining character on that show. He's also the villain in Transporter 3 with Jason Statham. So he's got the Russian secret police on him. He's trying to figure out what's going on with this guy Belikov. Did he kill the real Belikov, or did he kill an imposter? Why is, and just generally, why is all this happening to him? And his agency has completely thrown him under the bus because, it's being treated as though he botched a job. And so, of course, if you screw up with this agency, you're out. And out doesn't mean fired. Out obviously means dead. And you get this sequence at the train station when they're trying to leave, and he's taking Olga Kurilanka with him. She pretty quickly becomes his girl sidekick. They give her enough personality where I don't mind it. It's not like she's just an annoying tag-along. She has a good backstory. They do, the unrated cut also features a sequence where she's being stripped naked and tortured. But, she has a good backstory. She's a pretty solid actress. And Olga Kurilanka was also actually in a different video game adaptation right almost at the exact same time as Hitman called Max Payne, based on the Max Payne games with Mark Wahlberg. And that's a movie most people hate. I don't remember it being that bad or that good. I just remember being kind of whatever. But, she played Mila Kunis' sister in that movie, and honestly, they should have swapped roles, because Mila Kunis is so miscast in that movie. Olga Kurilanka would have been a much better badass action female lead, while Mila Kunis, is like 4'9" or something. She weighs 90 pounds. They really should have swapped roles, because Olga Kurilanka does have a lot of screen presence, and honestly, if it weren't for how thick her accent was, I think she could have really made it in Hollywood. But she just has a super thick accent, and that's never good for an actor if they can't shake it. Like Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sean Connery, there are so few exceptions to the rule that if you can't shake your ultra thick accent, you're not going to make it in Hollywood film industry. But anyway, that led into a pretty cool action sequence in this train station, where 47 has to fight off all these other hitmen that have been sent after him, and they all have the barcode on the back of their head. And this is where the idea that he's a clone gets thrown out the window, because all of these people with barcodes should theoretically be clones of the same guy. That was what Xavier Gann was setting up. But one of the hitmen in the train station is black, so that completely breaks that. It leads into this shootout. Apparently, these hitmen have no coordination between each other because they're all willing to kill each other to get their bounty, which is it's an action movie trope. It's something that doesn't really make any actual kind of sense, but you just kind of have to accept it to go with the action. So they're all fighting each other, and they, turns into a sword fight, and like I said, it's a good scene. It was actually reshot, so, and apparently the director, this is one of the sequences the director was really unhappy with being reshot, and Olga Kurilanka was supposed to be more active in the scene, as is. She misses basically everything, and then she just comes in right at the end, and the Interpol agents have tracked him down again, and he has, the lead guy, Dougray Scott, under the gun, and he's gonna kill him, and she says, just please stop, and he stops. He's like, she just saved your life, and he walks away, and that's kind of the first moment where you see the cracks forming, where he's really, she's kind of getting to him, and he's not able to just kill as mercilessly as he was. And 47 has a pretty solid character arc in this movie, and he, Timothy Olyphant, even though, again, his line delivery isn't always on point, he and Olga Kurilanka do have an interesting relationship, and it's one of those movies where the romantic relationship doesn't feel tacked on or unnecessary, or like it slows the movie down. It does feel necessary to what's happening, and that's nice, that it's not just, oh yeah, we need a female lead because there's no girls in this movie. So they do use her, and even though, again, she's wearing next to nothing through the whole movie, there's even one scene where she's testing his total recall because he has a photographic memory. She's like, okay, so what color was well, okay, what are the people on the table sitting behind there? They're having dinner in Turkey. This is one of those movies that travels all over the world. Well, all over Europe anyway. So she's like, oh, well, what are the people sitting behind us having for dinner? And he tells her, he says, what is the woman sitting over there? What color is her blouse? He says, well, that's not a woman. It says it's a transvestite. But, and then she says, well, what color panties am I wearing? And he says, you're not wearing any. And that kind of tells you what kind of character this is. So he works out some sort of shady deal with the CIA where he's going to take out Belikov's brother, who's played by Henry Ian Cusick, who was on the TV show Lost. He had the really thick Irish accent and called everyone brother and was always time traveling. That guy. And this movie has a really thick Russian accent, and he's Belikov's arms dealer brother. And that leads into another cool, solid action sequence where he kills a guy and all he kills a guy and all his bodyguards. And again, unrated cut shows you a little bit more of that, where he's just executing these guys. These guys are just fish in a barrel. He's laying waste to them. So he kills them and he steals the guy's identity to get into the arms dealer's den. And at this point, you may be thinking, a guy who's always trying to kind of be stealth and stealing people's identity probably shouldn't have a giant identifying mark on the back of their damn head. And that's just one of those things you got to roll with. It's based on a video game. It's just it's branding. It's branding. And they even played the video game in this movie during the action sequence in the hotel at the beginning. There are these the 47 does the thing where he swings from one hotel room down to the floor below him through the window. We've seen that in a ton of action movies. And the two kids in there, of course, when they land in the hotel room, there's always people who are shocked, like, oh. And in this case, it's two kids playing the Hitman video game. I think it's the second one. But yeah, so it's just branding. It's just to make the character look distinctive. Bald head, barcode tattoo on the back of his head, and the suit. But so, he gets into the arms dealers. There's another really cool, really gory action sequence. Again, I like that this movie is so hard on. Again, there's even an unrated cut, and it does show that the 47 is just he will kill some people. He doesn't. There's no real code of honor here. He's just going to kill to achieve his goal. And this all leads into a big finale in a church with Belikov. And so there's some big issues with this. I mean, right down to the fact that the movie doesn't really have a lead villain because it can't really decide if Belikov or the leader of the Russian secret police is the primary villain. And both of them make references to some sort of shadowy organization pulling the strings, but we never see anyone but these two guys. And it's never even clear between the two of them who has the real power in the relationship. The secret police guy at times is telling Belikov, dude, you need to calm down, you need to stop drinking, we're going to handle this. But then there's scenes where the Belikov's double, is like throwing stuff at him and telling him, you're a fuck up, you can't get anything done. So there's no clear dynamic in this power. It's just like, it doesn't give 47 a nemesis. It doesn't give him anyone to really be going after because... so it's just kind of him trying to piece together. But that is sort of the cool part of the movie, too, is that even though it really did need a strong villain and someone for 47 to be fighting, it is cool that at the end of the movie you realize that everything that's happened has been part of a bigger plan to set up a perfect hit for Belikov. That everything that happened was to put Belikov in this room of this church at this time. And even the Interpol agents are ultimately part of it because there's this scene where they've gotten the confiscated equipment of 47, and that leads them to the church, and he wanted them at the church also to kind of facilitate his escape. So yeah, all of this, it's fun, it's cool, but when you really start paying attention to this movie, you can pick out a lot of flaws, like even down to like really basic filmmaking issues. Like there's one scene where the Interpol agent played by Dougray Scott is shouting at his superior like, he's gonna kill Belikov, he's gonna get him at the church. But the dialogue, it doesn't match the lips. This is some of the worst ADR ever. And some of the Interpol agent's scenes are clearly out of order. There's a scene where he's using Agent 47's tech to bug the Russian secret police, but this scene is like 15 minutes before he gets 47's equipment. But you see him using it, and then you see him receive it. So there's just really basic cinematic issues like that in this movie. Yeah, the supporting cast is really underdeveloped. Really, the only two characters that have any personality to speak of are 47 and the female lead, Olga Kurilanka's character. But I do like the way she's constantly kind of flirting with him, and then, when he pisses her off, she lets him know it. She's not just a pushover or a doormat. She's scared, but then again, sometimes she has some strength. And overall, their relationship is one of the better parts of the movie. And he is really awful to her at the beginning. He keeps putting her in the trunk, and there's this kind of running joke where she does, obviously doesn't want to be in the trunk. At first, there's a dead body in there, and then later on, he's like, "I took the dead body out. What else do you want from me?" And he gives her breakfast. He's like, "Yeah, if you keep talking, I'm gonna put you back in the trunk." It's funny how rude he is to her, and that she keeps on pushing back against it too. She never seems really scared of him. She's more scared of Belikov, and I think she can kind of read that he doesn't really want to hurt her. And their relationship pays off well at the end. There's actually an alternate ending that would have sucked. I would have hated it if they kept that alternate ending. But yeah, overall, the underrated cut. You get a, more of 47 killing people. He just killing the hell out of people, and a little bit more gore, and you get a little bit more nudity if that's your thing. From Olga Kurilanka. So ladies with a thing for Timothy Olyphant, nah, the best you get is that one scene of him in a tank top at the beginning of the movie. But the score is really boring and generic. It's like any action thriller. Like, just it's that. It's obviously not a huge budget movie, but it's also not a low budget movie. It has enough money generally to do what it wants to do. It's got some good production design elements. 47's tech is pretty cool. Some like the part where he's in a Russian arms dealer's den, like his hideout, like the guy's partying like a porn star. Like he's got these women in really weird, elaborate lingerie, and they're all decked out in crazy ass outfits. So that part's pretty cool. It's not a boring movie. It's a good, fast-paced movie. It's got some good laughs, some good action, and like I said, it's generally just better than most of video game adaptations, because most video game adaptations are hard to watch. They're either boring or so poorly made and stupid that it's just painful, like some of the later Resident Evil sequels, or what was that, Dead or Alive, or even that thing with Dwayne Johnson, Rampage. Just video game adaptations are usually bad, and this is not a bad movie. It's maybe not a great movie, but it's a pretty good, solid, over-the-top, hard R action movie. Anyway, that's all I got. I'll do another episode. I'll do another one. Anyway, that's all I got. So I will do another update next Wednesday, unless I think of something I want to talk to you about before then. Later.